Welcome to Cinema Gulp, everybody. I'm Ben.
And this is Mark.
And this is Binge Drinking The Witcher. Mark, thanks for coming on. Last time you came on Binge Drinking, I want to say it was for Cobra Kai Season 3, but it's been about, I looked it up, it's been about 10 months, I think, since you were on last. So nice to have you back, sir. A legend.
Glad to be back.
So you got me into the show. I mean, at least you were the first to mention it to me a couple of years ago, but then just over Christmas break in 2019, I decided to just binge it. I couldn't stop watching it. I'm sure you were just as disappointed as I was. The pandemic just kept stopping the production over and over. They kept restarting it, stopping it, starting it.
Fuck.
Here we are exactly 2 years later from season 1. And to me, the show's a little tighter, and we'll get into why. But overall thoughts about season 2 for you, Mark?
Yeah, I definitely think they finally went back to like a more linear structure because what they had to do in season 1 was they were telling 3 different stories at the same time. And because the massive differences in these characters' ages, despite their appearance, they were taking place at different eras in the story's timelines, right? Because Yennefer's technically the oldest by many decades from Geralt. Geralt's already like approaching like something like 80, 90, something like that.
They said 80, yeah.
Yeah, because sorcerers and witchers like age differently. Sorcerers stop their aging. And then, of course, you've got Ciri, who was born much later, and you kind of see the events that are important to her that happened with Sintra, right? So in season 1, they were going back and forth between these 3 timelines that were not actually occurring at the same time, but eventually meet up at the very end. And then with season 2, we now have a more traditional linear, structure going through from start to finish.
And I'm all for nonlinear structure. I love it in films. It could work in television. Yeah. I feel that my only problem with I love season 1, otherwise I wouldn't have returned. But I feel it was a little oddly paced, and
it was clunky because the feedback I've talked to from like other people and like folks that we know that also watched it, sometimes it got confusing to them to follow it, and I could totally understand because there was a few moments where I was like, wait, is this happening at this time and this time? I mean I understood it by the end and I figured out what was going on, but for some people I could totally understand where they might have gotten a little bit lost. So there's like 7 books, but technically the first 2 books, which is what season 1 was based on, they're a collection of short stories. So that's maybe one of the deciding factors that why they decided to go this route, because season 2 is based on Blood of Elves, which was the first like main novel, followed by several other novels that told everything in a more, kind of like an epic saga.
The season 1, you find out about Geralt. He's so much of an enigma through a lot of the season. You know what he has to do with these certain characters, and like I like season 2 because I love going to like Witcher's Lair or whatever it's called.
Yeah, it's like Morin, which is a big location in like the books, the games especially, and that's where the School of the Wolf is because there's actually different schools. So these guys, if you notice their wolf medallions, they belong to that specific school, and they have like other schools of witchers that used to exist.
Very cool.
And they kind of have their own styles of fighting and everything. It's pretty cool.
You can tell, yeah. I love it that they're all very different type of people, builds and whatnot. But if we're getting into season 2, I fucking loved it. I had so much fun with it. The first episode, like the Beauty and the Beast style thing with the warthog guy, I just fucking was sucked into that episode.
That was a fun episode. That of course was in the books. I think they told it a little bit differently. I don't remember the minor differences, but like that was a very classic Witcher story, and how Sapkowski, the author, usually tells his stories, because nothing is ever black and white. And it's always hard to discern like what's good, what's evil. Everything is gray in his world, right? So it's almost never clear like what's good or bad, or if you think someone's good, they actually turn out bad, and vice versa. Like when you find why they do the things that they do, and that's what people love about this universe. It's just so more like our world, right? Nothing's ever black and white. Usually there's somewhere in the gray.
This season was the one where I'm like, okay, I kind of get everybody's motivations now, and again. There's clear things in this production, and again, it's not a bad thing. It's actually kind of a good thing, where you could tell this was shot during pandemic times, where there's lots of characters in central locations and they stay there for long periods of time. There's not a whole lot of characters in frame at one time. You could see a lot of soundstage stuff with the elves when the elves are in the forest, it's all soundstage. But I do know that they had 15 different shooting locations around the world. So they did go on location to a lot of stuff. But there's things where you can tell that like you don't see mask rings, but you see evidence of the pandemic. But and that's kudos to them for making the show so great with all those restrictions and limitations and how long they had to like keep on coming back to it and shutting it down.
Yeah, I'm sure the challenges were something else.
Okay, so from this point on, we'll give a spoiler warning because I want to spoil the shit out of the show.
Yeah, there's no way to talk about this without spoilers.
Right, and it's not as fun.
So it picks up where season 1 left off, right? Where we're looking at the aftermath of the Battle of Sodden Hill, just the devastation from that, like what's happened to Yennefer, because obviously she was portrayed to be kind of the main victor, or that brought victory for that battle, where Geralt and Ciri are now like starting their kind of father-daughter relationship, right? Because they're now kind of intertwined and together from this point on, more or less. And you see that some characters kind of went their separate ways, like Jaskier and Geralt had a falling out. So he kind of went his way, and he's got a great way of how he handles that situation.
Oh, man.
He shows how he feels about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was cool. It's cool to see. I'm glad that from where they left off, and now we get to see what's next.
Yennefer, she's my favorite character. She's complex. Her backstory is so tragic and interesting and long.
She's one of my favorite characters too. And she's the one that actually got like a lot of differences from the book, which whether you want to get into that now or later, I think Anya, who plays Yennefer, does a really good job. I think this season, they didn't give her the best material compared to season 1.
No.
Right? No. Because she's capable of playing a really great Yen, actor-wise, right? But I think this time around, they didn't quite give her the material. And that's definitely something I want to get into later.
She is amazing, and she's not bad to look at. She's like literally my new favorite crush. Like, I mean, I don't know. Well, a lot of people were like, maybe it's because of the transformation she makes in season 1, where she's like freaking Quasimodo at the beginning.
Yeah, and that's how book Yen was too, right? Like a lot of the sorcerers, it was true how a lot of the times these sorcerers were like disfigured or unwanted or unattractive women who the lodge got together, sent them to Aretusa, and made them into the women that they are.
Yeah, and then they do a good job of it.
The commentary from the book was like, you have these like gorgeous sorcerers, but underneath you have like what these young girls who faced all this shit from the world, and there was definitely some bitterness in them from their experiences.
Well, and that's why you pick people like that, because like there's chips on shoulders.
Yeah.
I love the growth of all three of these characters. I think episode 1 is Yennefer less, I believe, which makes sense because they want to, for me, I mean, the fate of these characters. For me, it was nice I knew she was coming back clearly, but how she came back or when she was coming back, I had no clue. So I think it gave a nice little bit of breathing room for that first episode that I love so much. It might be my favorite episode of the season, but so you have Ciri and Geralt giving us that like, fuck, dude, that's all we waited for last season. It kept getting repetitive. Like, when are these two going to combine? And then they combine and the season ends, So yeah. It's nice to now see how that's working. And I think that Freya, the actress that plays Ciri, really coming into her own to become a very interesting character. And the season more or less revolves around her growth, sort of. I mean, I think it does a good job of revolving around.
Yeah, she's going to stay a very important central character because, as we'll see later on, even as you learned in this season, like what her importance is, because she's a descendant of Lara Doran. She's got the elder blood in her. She is actually destined for some very specific stuff. And that's why all the kings, all the sorcerers, all these people just want her. They want to get their hands on her for all these different nefarious reasons, right? None of them good for the poor girl, and she's got, Geralt to now protect her. And that's the great thing too. Like this first episode was, I believe, universally liked by everyone, no matter how much they liked or didn't like the season.
It was like a one-off. That's why.
It was a one-off. I think it might have been a short story, but it's like classic Witcher. It's classic Witcher with like the nuance of taking like tales and having a twist on them, showing how nothing's black and white, the deep relationships within, because you have Geralt and Nivellen. You've got Geralt and Ciri with her experience with like Nivellen and the Bruxa. And it's great to see that play out. And total props, like you said, to Freya and Henry playing their characters, because Henry is also such a huge fan of the books, the games, of Geralt, the character Geralt himself. And you can see how much he pays like respect to the character in the source material when he plays that character, right? He gives so many little nods to the fans. And even he said in an interview, like, even if stuff kind of strays from the source material, he does his best to try to keep it like as close to source as he can. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Why couldn't he do that with Superman? I think he's fantastic in the role. Sometimes the voice weans on me a bit.
I have nothing to hide. He pulled that girl from the card. But the moment I mentioned the girl's father.
My favorite thing is his because I think he's funny, and I love how they constantly say how he's so stoic and boring. I think his lack of sense of humor is what makes it funny.
Yeah. I mean, Geralt actually like does have humor. Like he's often like both in books and especially the games. Sometimes a lot of times he'll be like deadpan, but he is actually like, he's definitely versed in philosophy. I mean, he's been around for decades, right? He's almost a century old. Yeah. And then he's got like this wry sense of humor at times. Sometimes he deadpans. Like he's actually like a clever, witty guy when he wants to be.
Yeah. And he uses a lot of facial expressions. So that first episode when they're doing the dark game, like the truth, that tell the truth game.
And throwing the knives.
I'm sorry, not darts, knives. Yeah. Where they're doing that game, and he's clearly he's clearly cheating.
Yeah, and he knows.
And that's his facial expressions when he misses.
Yeah.
It's just fucking great. Like, but yeah, then the season kind of starts playing out. You get a lot of that Nilfgaard elves politics stuff, but I don't know. It doesn't bore me though. Sometimes my brain switches off when you're watching certain things, and you start getting a bunch of British people talking about kingdoms and the power. They're trying to get the power of like sometimes my brain switches off for that stuff. But for some reason, everyone in the show, every character just has something that keeps me engaged from scene to scene. Friend Jill, great character, really good. I like her a lot, but that scene is so menacing and awesome. The way it was executed, where she freezes those guys. And, and kills them one by one.
Did a great job showing like the fact that they were frozen. They're aware that they're frozen, and
they can probably feel it.
You can feel the terror, like even though you can't move.
Well, they could probably feel the pain too. Like they feel everything. They just can't move. Oh, that was such an awesome scene. Yeah. And it shows her power that like I didn't know she had.
Yeah, and it was probably like a reminder of like, hey, if you mess with me, I am capable of this.
Oh, it definitely was, because they were all there scheming against her, and she just stopped time and goes, "I'm sorry, you motherfuckers. Like, I don't think you understand." Yeah, that was great. But again, she's another one of those characters where I'm like, she just did something like that and she let those people hang. So I'm like, is she bad, or is just this the ugly world that we live in?
It's the ugly world, because there's always just that morally ambiguous, a lot of characters go through very morally ambiguous like decisions that they're, because of the situations they're put into.
You're right.
Sometimes you may see them make a good decision, a bad decision. And whether it's for, to save their own hide, maybe they're trying to save someone else's hide, maybe they're trying to get a one up on someone else. So there's always like this drive of like, I may have to do something really bad here because I gotta, protect myself, or I'm on this mission, or I'm doing it for a different purpose, specific purpose.
Let's bring up I think his name is Joey Beatty.
Yaskir,
the Bard.
Yeah, Yaskir.
Bard. I was so worried he wasn't going to be on the show, and I guess I could have just looked it up on IMDb. But he shows up about halfway, and oh my god, it was so good to see him when he shows back up.
I mean, Joey's awesome, especially the fact that he actually performs that. He's actually like
he's got a good voice.
Bard. Like he can play the lute. He's actually a bard. He can actually sing. So it's perfect that he can do that with that character.
Because I was like, how are they going to shoehorn him in, because he's such a good character, but is he going to have anything to do with anything? And he
does. Like his roles were very similar in the books. Like he is an important friend of Geralt's, like all throughout. He's also in the games and everything. Like he's basically one of Geralt's like best friends, even though the show sort of shows him treating him like shit, but it wasn't really like that in the books. I don't know why they pushed that as hard as they did. It's kind of weird, because they are supposed to have this bond, even if they don't always get along, or they sometimes bicker like an old couple. But deep down, there is supposed to be like that friendship and that trust and everything. So maybe maybe they're playing it different at the beginning just to build that up for later, I guess.
His first song was like, throw a coin to your Witcher, because they're awesome.
Toss a coin to your Witcher, oh Valley of Plenty.
And then in this one, it's like, fuck off, kill the Witchers or whatever.
Kill the butcher, because he was referencing him being the butcher of Blaviken.
Watch that butcher.
The production of the show is amazing. It's nothing short of amazing to me. Like, every episode, I don't even know, you can't really have filler episodes when they're this short. And I don't think there was, dude. I mean, I don't think so.
No.
God, dude, like that, some of the creature designs this season, the one that where it's chasing after Suri, and she ends up in sort of this cove, and she's
it's sort of like that sort of centipede, not quite like a centipede, but like an insectoid kind of monster.
It really, that's perfect way to describe it. It was like insect-like, but it was kind of terrifying. And it just the creation, the rendering, it all just looks so good to me. Geralt goes home, and that's where he takes Suri. And for me, right off the bat, I'm like, okay, these are Witchers, but why don't I trust these guys? They just seem like scumbags, right? Like, aside from him, they all just like drunk, and they have hookers.
Well, see, that's a difference from the books, where they would not do such a thing. Nobody would have brought an entire brothel to the Kaer Morhen. Like, that did not happen, would not happen.
So this is a good example, because I know that you've read all the material, all the source material. So the whole plot, which lasts basically from the second episode to the end of the show, he goes on a couple adventures, but for the most part, he's home at the Witcher castle, or whatever it's called.
Kaer Morhen,
yeah. Sorry, I'm bad with that stuff. If you read the books, I'm sure it sticks in the head more than names. But so how does some of that stuff differ? Because like those characters were very interesting, even though they only really show you 2 or 3 of them.
So the first major difference was there was way too many Witchers. There was actually supposed to be way fewer like left in the world.
Less than that.
Oh, wow. less than what we already saw, right? Because there's so few of them left that for the most part, every winter, like the main ones that would be coming back would be like Lambert, Eskel, Geralt, and maybe Cohen, right?
There's a lot less at the end of this season.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that was their way of bringing that back to source, right? But as far as books are concerned, like that, there was never that many Witchers, right? Like from that scene on. And the other big change too was like, Eskel did not act like that. I mean, he was in the book very little, but the personality that they gave him here, I found him very unlikable. And
yeah, me too.
And I think for me, like for you, it might have been different, right? Because no books, no games. But for me, playing the games, CD Projekt Red did a great job. Fans loved Eskel in the 3rd game. So for me personally, when I watched how they handled him and what happened with him, because he didn't die either, he's not dead in the books and the games, they did him dirty. Like, he was unlikable. Why he had to die, I have no clue. I mean, I only found out why because I got Lauren, the showrunner's thoughts on like a Witcher special, where she shared like, oh, well, she wanted this death to be like a big impact on Geralt, and it needed to be someone close to him. So I guess because Eskel just kind of disappears from the books, basically, it's like, oh, well, let's just kill this character off. I'm sorry, I still don't agree with that. Like,
very unlikable in the show.
Yeah, very unlikable.
They never give him, to be honest with you, when Geralt and the older dude are trying to save him, I'm like, why? He's kind of a dick anyway.
So like when you think about like what are a lot of modern or a lot of past types of stories reference, like everyone knows a lot about Greek mythology, right? Norse mythology. There's a lot of mythologies that we're all mostly familiar with because it tends to be used a lot as inspiration for like fantasy works and such, right? What I love about the Witcher books, it's bringing like Eastern European and Slavic mythologies, which aren't always front and center in a lot of stuff that people get to learn about today, right? And Leshin are like an Eastern European kind of like scary fairy tale folklore monster.
That's what the big difference is, isn't it? Like,
and a lot of it comes too from like those one guys, the Brothers Grimm.
Speaking of characters who I found slightly unlikable, and this might be controversial, I think his name is Vesemir. I think it had to do with the actor. Well, first of all, the character constantly is sort of shifting personality. Like,
yeah, see, and that's not in the books either. Like,
yeah, How is because he seemed, is he a father figure? Is he
he's definitely supposed to be like a father or grandfather.
He didn't come across that way at all. I think the actor just looked like someone out of The Sopranos.
What the fuck are you doing here?
I can see where you're going.
I don't know.
I kind of think it was just the material, right? Because Vesemir would have never thought of using Ciri to make more Witchers. Like, again, another big difference from the books. Like, that didn't happen. That wouldn't have happened. So it's weird that they came up with this stuff to that also fundamentally changed some of these characters and made them so different in this adaptation, right? It's hard to say, right? So, if you couldn't tell and if to you as a viewer, it kept flip-flopping, then I'd say that that's kind of like a writing issue, right? Like they should have iterated on that until they got to where no, he's definitely the father figure. There's no other way to take it. And, he's supposed to be this old, experienced Witcher. He was one of the few remaining ones where he created Geralt, Lambert, and Eskel, right?
Yeah. And they explain all of that, but then his character just doesn't reflect it. Though I will say that his major plight at the very end was very well justified, what he's trying to do, because all of his Witcher, his kids essentially or whatever, getting fucking picked off one by one.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? I mean, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but it doesn't matter. Like that final big confrontation, and I love it that there were still 15 minutes left in the show after that took place, but the pacing was I was having an anxiety attack because the action stuff in the main room is awesome, and you got the bard under the table, and you're watching the Witchers just get their faces ripped off. That scene's great, but then the juxtaposition of Ciri, the thing where she's in the alternate world and her parent, and is this a trick? What's going on with, you know what I mean? You know that part?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think
slowed everything down, and it would last for minutes at a time, and then go back to the action. I mean, we've seen that before, but I just was wow, I don't know.
Again, something that just did not happen in the books. I'm sorry that I keep saying that.
Really, the grand finale of this.
Never possessed. The Deathless Mother did not exist. The whole Baba Yaga thing.
That scene was nuts. When she just got possessed out of nowhere and just starts murdering people. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah, which is kind of weird too, because if she was in a magical state right then, I mean, Witchers, I know they were sleeping, but Witcher sensors are still really acute, right? They go through so much crap to be able to fight monsters that I found it kind of interesting that she was able to sneak up on them. Because if nothing else, the medallion, I feel, would have started vibrating.
Oh, dude, all the Witchers on this
magical
show.
Entity was coming within, within your vicinity,
Dude, every Witcher other than Geralt on this show is a complete drunken idiot.
Step up, motherfucker! Call it! Yeah! Oh, yeah! Hey!
So the Witcher that was giving her shit, was that Mousak? Or was that...
Lambert?
That was Lambert. Okay. Oh, that was Lambert.
At least they kept that part accurate, because Lambert is also was supposed to be kind of a prick, because his
most fleshed out Witcher.
Yeah.
I liked his character a lot.
Yeah. No, he and Geralt have some great stuff in the books, and even great stuff in the games too, where Geralt even came up with a haiku where he's like, Lambert, what a prick. The guy goes, nice. Because his backstory too is he actually always resented the fact that he became a Witcher, right? Because I think he became one also through the whole child surprise thing, and he was never happy about it. He kind of hated the fact that happened to him, but he still rolls with it,
And you can tell because he has those lines. I love how him and Geralt differ on when you go home. That's supposed to be relaxation and letting your body rest, and all Geralt wants to do is train, and he's just like, fuck that. He's like, we're just gonna get drunk and
nope. Walk with me. Nope.
He's being hard on Ciri, but he's actually training her pretty well and gives her some stuff, and he's got some good stuff to do at the end.
Yeah, and then Cohen also takes her under his wing quite a bit too, where you see him adjusting her form and telling her about techniques. They're both sitting there, practicing, which I thought was cool too.
God, we haven't even really talked about Yennefer after talking about how much we love her as a character. They take away her powers this season, which I was kind of frustrated.
You know what I'm going to say to that, right?
Please, no. Now I think we're going to have a lot of you go.
Didn't happen in the books.
I had this feeling when you told me that on the phone a couple weeks ago, and I was like, let's do a Witcher one. That was one of them. And it didn't really go anywhere without her. I don't know. I mean, I guess she had to struggle a little bit without him, but...
I mean, I guess it kind of was supposed to show her struggle in the fact that, she she went through the hell that she went through to gain these powers. Now she's lost these powers, right? And now she's like feeling lost, like I can't defend myself in this cruel world. This power was maybe the power that she got was now redefining her, and then she felt that she lost a part of herself because of everything.
No, you're right. You're right. But how she got them back was a little shoehorned.
Yeah.
If she doesn't lose her power, so in the show, everyone from season 1, she kind of saves the day, and she goes full out fire and uses like the fire magic stuff. I'm saying
technically she didn't do that in the books either. Yennefer did do some stuff, but she was like, she did contribute. She did get kind of like blinded, but it was something that recovered from. She did get taken by Nilfgaard, but she wasn't like the one who was able to like rain fire down on everything.
Wow. Okay. Well, then if we're talking differences, obviously
that's a big one, right? Yeah.
The taking away of the powers thing is just a result of the fact that the other thing is not from the book. She didn't do that at all.
So maybe that's why they decided to do that, because the fire magic is so forbidden, and to use it also you lose something to use it, as we saw with Rience, because he was that crazy mofo, with the fire.
Yeah.
That they have to square off against later, because he's hired by a benefactor that we don't know about yet, right? It's not revealed yet because he wants to get his hands on Ciri too, right? I do like that they showed like Yen has the smarts when she needs to be, where she was pretending to keep drinking that alcohol, and then she's kept
still very
imposing. Her mouth.
She's still very imposing.
Yeah. But I love how she secretly kept like that swig of alcohol in her mouth, so when the guy couldn't help but keep showing the flames, just and then burned his face that way. Because she did burn his face like in an actual fight in the books. But here, obviously, with no powers, they're probably thinking, well, how do we recreate that? So at least that was clever, showing like, some good character smarts.
Yennefer's still my favorite character, even though season 1, she was fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating. And this season, she was going through the motions, but everything you're saying is correct. She's still super resourceful. And I never felt too fearful for her, even without her powers, because she knows how to handle herself.
Yeah. My only main critique of her is like the original Yennefer, like she's supposed to be like very elegant, very like they had her like swearing too much. Like there's times where I felt like she was just a little bit of
Do you want to keep all you have? Make a damn wish.
I think that's a good change that the show.
You like that? You like the fire?
Well, I haven't read the books, but I love the way that everyone is kind of foul in language.
Fuck. Oh, fuck.
Just the fact that everything about her this whole season is so different from what you read, because it's all a result of what she did in season 1 that she never did in the book. So they've just from what you're saying and from watching the show, they've taken a totally new direction with her.
Yeah. She also would never do and never did do what she did with Ciri in the season, where she was seriously contemplating actually taking her and trading her to get her powers back. That would have never happened.
That pissed me off. At the end of this season, they end up, and I had a huge smile on my face, because now you have Geralt, Ciri, and Yennefer all together on whatever travels they're going to take, because for some reason they've deemed that it's not safe to stay at Witcher Manor, so they have to leave there. So now they're going to have adventures together.
We're going from Blood of Elves, and then we'll be going into Time of Contempt, and I'm pretty sure there was that family dynamic there that we'll get to see and explore and see how it continues to grow.
The ending is it's all 3 of them, but Yennefer having the least to do, but Geralt finally being in the action and kicking ass and doing all that stuff and outsmarting the monster, and it was lovely. I love the action heavy finale of season 2, where every character that we've seen the whole season is involved in the fight. I don't think they kill off any Witcher that we really spent any time with, right? They just kill off like nobodies. I love that it sets up going into season 3, but it really closes itself out as a season so well. But I love that our main villain, that smarmy motherfucker, that guy that's
Rience.
Yes. I love it that he's now like more focused and on their trail, and that's probably going to be a big thing. I mean, I guess.
If I remember correctly, he and Geralt face off later on.
I want to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still glad that it exists, because in the end, I still enjoyed it, and I'm glad that it might be bringing new fans who might then go discover the books and the games and become even bigger fans. So I think that's always a good thing. Yeah,
it's a great thing, and who doesn't want to watch more fantasy of just like I love seeing creative things on screen that still make me feel like a kid, you know, that the swords and the sorcery and
especially if it's unique, right? I mean, obviously these books were written not like a while ago, but not too long ago, but it's nice to see stuff that's what comes across as original, right?
It really does.
Because in this era of reboots and sequels and nonstop remakes, it's like it gets old. Like it gets old really fast.
And aside from, you know, your typical things like you have your dwarves and you have your elves and you have your mages, aside from those things, everything about The Witcher feels unique, and it doesn't trope itself out, you know?
Yeah. Almost all fantasies are going to have like overlap when it comes to like ideas for races and stuff. It's how you make it your own and how you make it just, you know, unique that people can appreciate, right? Your execution on it, your ideas, your creativity that can separate it from every other version of elves and dwarves and whatever. Speaking of dwarves, shout out to Yarpin and his crew, because I love it when he shows up on screen and starts swearing the way he does.
I totally forgot. I love that so much. And those are a bunch of Scottish dudes, right?
Yeah.
Like, when you hear Scottish people like yelling and cussing, it's the funniest shit ever.
You're supposed to be a watchdog, you fucking you.
So far, this show is running strong as fuck. Like, good on Netflix for spending the scratch to like make it look good and not take. I've been hearing these horror stories. I haven't watched it, but I've been hearing these horror stories about the show called Wheel of Time, which a lot of people love these books. I heard the show looks like a fucking sci-fi original movie mess.
Despite all the changes, and many of which I didn't agree with, I still like enjoyed it, right? Like, I mean, I will admit, I just binged it all the day I fired it up. Damn. I was enthralled. I love the performances of all the main characters, right? So shout out to like Henry, Freya, Anya, and Joey for their Geralt, Ciri, Yen, and Jaskier characters. You know, they're killing it. I hope they do continue to like give them like a good script to work with, especially on Yennefer's side. I think they need to toss Anya some good traditional Yennefer stuff, and I hope they don't deviate too much from what's coming in Time of Contempt, because the showrunner did say a lot of what happened in season 2, even with the changes, is all setting up for the next book, which is supposed to be her favorite book. So that I look forward to that. I hope they, you know, stick to that as much as they can. Because, you know, like I said, the series as a whole is definitely revered. So I'm definitely looking forward to see what they can accomplish with that. And again, like, I'm a big fan of just stick to the material. You've got fantastic actors. If you can continue to increase like the production value and everything, absolutely. You know, make the show the best that it can be, because, you know, I'm here waiting to see more.
I'm glad The Witcher snagged up Henry Cavill, and no more Superman movies. I don't want any more, because I don't want any scheduling conflicts for him doing Witcher episodes, which I would way much rather see him do 5 more seasons of The Witcher than another shitty Superman movie. Right now, the show is popular. It's huge. Like,
I mean, I think they're trying to write it as much as they can. You've got that animated version of like Vesemir's backstory.
They have a prequel show, don't they?
Like they're making spin-offs
or something.
Yeah, they're making spin-offs.
Not a prequel, a spin-off show already filmed.
Yeah,
already made it.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, when you're doing that kind of stuff, like, you know, stay good while you can. Like, don't Walking Dead that shit where you beat it to death, but it's cool to take advantage when people like it, you know? If I had to pick what season I like better, I guess I'd go 2 a tiny bit, just because the storytelling was a little more focused. I had a little more fun with it because I wasn't sitting there going, what the fuck is going on? You have one scene to get people on board, one scene, and that's the very first scene. And the very first scene of Witcher season 1, where he's fighting that thing in the lake, immediately got me on board. And it's what you're talking about, like the monster fights and stuff. You don't need to do it every week. Do a nice build up to them, but that first scene in Witcher season 1 got so many people on board because it was so well shot, so well executed, very creative and fun. Like, here's
the thing I love about Geralt's character: when he gets down to business, like he's dangerous. Like, he is a very accomplished swordsman. He will kick your ass.
Oh yeah. Guys, go watch the show. It's on Netflix. Come on, you can binge it. It's a perfect weekend binge. It's so balanced. It's not that many episodes, but every episode they give it their all. It looks beautiful, sounds beautiful. Give it a shot. And you can find Cinema Gulp on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Share this with your friends, please. Click like and subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, for Cinema Gulp, I'm Ben.
That's Mark.
And we drink your cinema.
Toss a coin.